Hey guys, I'm Timo from mixstudio.com. Today I'm going to show you how I mix the drums for Joe Gilda's track called Live Forever. You can access these multi-tracks at homestudiocorner.com. Well, let's jump straight into it. Here's the drums as we got them. Well, not exactly. I did edit the toms. So instead of gating the toms, I have edited the toms to remove the spill. It sounds cleaner, and also you don't get any random gate glitches. What my favorite thing about this old drum mix was actually the snare. I was a bit chuffed with what I did. I'm actually quite proud of it. It was a little trick I borrowed from someone else and modified it a fair bit. So let's hear the drums as we got them. So this is no processing on the drums. Just full disclosure, we are going into a mix bus, which does have processing. But we're not focusing on that today, we're looking at the drums. So the first thing that grabs my attention is that snare and just how much room noise and just how much ring there is with the snare. So what I've done with the snare, I gated it. Applied a lot of EQ. Applied some distortion. Compressed it. I still wasn't happy with it. EQ'd it more. So before, and the snare bottom. It's a fair bit quieter in the mix, but that's where the final level was, and that's what seemed to work. So we EQ'd it to try and remove some of the ring. EQ'd it, healthy amount of everything. You can hear that we actually brought up the kick in that microphone. So what I used, Neutron. I used the gate, the EQ, and the transient shaper to produce this. There's a nasty ring in that snare which I couldn't stand, so I had to get rid of it. And last but not least, compress it. So my aim with the compression on those channels was just to lengthen the snare out, because after I've gated it, you lose a bit of length with it. So I wanted to enhance the length of the snare that I had left. And this is where we started from. Now, in the context of the full mix, that snare just wasn't cutting it. It was just a little bit too small sounding. So I compressed it pretty hard, so you do lose a bit of size with that as well, but it just lacked a bit of body and lacked a bit of guts. So I duplicated the snare top, gated it again. EQ'd it. So this is the snare top, it's been EQ'd. These EQs are pretty nasty, but there's also a lot of ring in that snare, so that just had to go before I did this next following trick. Now using sugar, it's a parallel processor which looks at particular frequency ranges. I brought up the lower level information that was already in the snare microphone. Also saturate a little bit. So what this gives us is a bit of low end thud. Now that's subtle and you're waiting to put headphones on to actually hear it. I'll play it again with and without. Have a listen to the very bottom below 100 Hertz. Did you notice it? Well, maybe this EQ will help you actually hear it as you can see it. I'll turn sugar off. You can see that little bit of energy around here. So now what does that do in the actual snare mix? Well, here's the snares. And with the snare low thud added. Now in the context of the full mix, that made a huge difference. So we'll play the full mix with and without that shortly, and you'll hear just how much of a difference that made. So next we'll look at the kick. The biggest thing with the kick, there's actually a double noise in it, which sounds more like it was picking up the floor vibrations. So you hear the kick and then you hear a rumble. You hear the kick and then you hear a rumble. I believe it was on the kick in that I was picking up most, but I also use a gate on this on the sub kick to remove everything that I didn't want. Just the extra rumbles. You hear just how much cleaner that is with the gates in place. Then on kick in, I did something fun with the Process .audio sugar plugin. I added a whole lot more bottom end without sugar. Yeah, just how much bigger that got. Then these next two plugins, the EQ and the compressor, work hand in hand. So in the context of the full mix, the kick drum was just a little bit too bright. I didn't want that extra brightness. I wanted a bit more of a solid thud than a airy kick. So with the Pro Q2, I was able to remove a lot of that extra stuff I didn't need. So yes, that is a lot of EQ, but it did get me the result I wanted. Then with the compressor, that would enhance that even further. Then with the sub kick, again, these two things work hand in hand. And then both of them together, we have this. And we started here. Let's talk about toms. So these are just being edited down. This part here is actually what we use Audio Suite for in Pro Tools. We use EQ1, set it to 170, and you low pass it. And that just removes all the cymbal spill or snare hits or anything else you might have going on. So the tom ends up sounding very naturally gated. Oops. You can hear what the crossover point is, but by that point in time in the full mix, you don't actually hear the top information of the tom. You just hear the bottom end thud or pump. So the transient gets your attention, and then you just feel the rumble from there. We have a lot of plugins here because I was messing around with something that I thought was pretty cool. All these plugins are very similar. There's only a couple of differences in this particular plugin, the Pro Sub. So I'll bring up Tom 1. Can you hear just how much bigger that got? What have we done with it? 100 Hertz plus 3 dB, 200 plus another 3, 3K plus 6.5, 8K plus 7. It's a nice bit of smiley face. The top end grabs your attention and the bottom end just punches hard. In the concept of mix, the tom sounded a bit flat and not quite punchy as I wanted to be. So I brought in a sub-harmonic generator. You hear just how much bigger the tom's got. And then we compressed them. Listen to the attack on the toms. You see how much greater the attack becomes and grabs your attention. Listen, it jumps out of the speakers. And then from there, we just high pass it again. The very, very bottom to ensure it doesn't rumble too much. The overheads. The first thing that jumped out to me was just how bright and brittle it sounded. So with the EQ, remove the brittleness and the harshness. Didn't quite remove everything. There's just a little bit of spiky stuff in there, but it's okay. And then with the 88 RS, it's got a bit of a weird funky thing where you can low pass it and put it back in with the high shelf, and it just sounds shimmery and glistens. That's been low passed at, call that 12K, and then we've got a shelf at, call that 9, and call that 2:30, 3 o'clock, whatever that is. And this time around, we're using sugar to actually add more brightness in. So again, this is where we started from. I'll play you the 3 room microphones. Well, actually, sorry. There's one room microphone, a fat microphone, and a trash microphone. These two sound like they're very similar positions. One's been compressed really hard. One has been compressed as hard. And a stairwell microphone. But these 3 act like room microphones for me and how I thought about them. So yes, I turned something that was mono into stereo. So my inspiration for that was when listening to the whole drum mix, there was nothing really wide. The overheads are quite mono. The room microphone was mono. There's no real width to it, the room ambience. So how do we do that? Well, first EQ'd it. Then we compressed it hard. Not as hard as I expected. It was all buttons in and triggering heavily on the snare. Then to make it stereo, we used the UAD reflection engine. Selected a box and messed around until it sounded nice and wide. But because that's a mono thing being turned to stereo, it does add a bit of funkiness to it. So I use this EQ to try and remove some of that funkiness. Then next came the fat microphone, which sounded like this. And ended up sounding like this. This microphone is picking up a lot of the snare ring, so that's to try and tame the snare ring down. It doesn't do it 100%, but it helps. The compressor's doing a lot of work to give it a lot of character. So if I turn off the EQ and just listen to the compressor alone, and just more how much more life it has, and how much more roomy it sounds. The trash microphone is already compressed pretty hard. Then of course I've compressed it even more. And you get it pretty hard. Again, this was just to remove all the room noise and the snare. That snare was ringing a lot and it's picked up by every single microphone. And just a reminder from where we started from. In the context of the full mix, I'll start from raw. I wanna live So now I'll turn off the snare low thud. Turn it back on. And go to where some toms play. That's for the song. We can really hear how the room microphone or the stereo room helps add space around the drums. We'll mute it and then we'll turn it back on. Raise a family, and I wanna walk my girls down the aisle. Wanna love their mama. Adds a nice back wall to the drum kit. Well, there you go. The drums for Joe Gilder's Live Forever from his latest EP called Amen. Hope these techniques have inspired you to try something new. Comment below with your questions or thoughts. Would love to hear them. If you'd like to hear your music transformed, visit mixstudio.com for a free sample mix. Make sure you subscribe. See you next time.